Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. I'm MJ, your host, and I'm so glad you're here for another episode. Today, we're diving into something that's at the heart of every relationship, every collaboration, and honestly, every single moment of human connection: agreeableness. Now, before you roll your eyes and think, oh great, another personality talk, stick with me. We're going deep here. How agreeableness shapes the way we see the world, how it impacts our basic pH, our beliefs, affects, social engagement, imagination, cognition, and physical manifestations evident in our emotions, and our physical health. And of course, how we can use it to row together toward collective and individual success. We're going to talk about everything from Stephen Covey's principle of seek first to understand, then to be understood, to setting boundaries, to the Hawaiian practice of ho'oponopono. Trust me, this is one episode you won't want to miss. So let's start with the basics. Agreeableness is one of the big 5 personality traits, and it's all about being kind, cooperative, and empathetic. It's what makes you say, you know what, let's work together on this, instead of, I'm doing it my way and that's final. Now, this doesn't mean that you need to be accepting all the time, or without your own due diligence, which we'll touch on as we talk about boundaries. Agreeableness isn't just about playing nice. It affects the way we think, feel, and engage with others. It shapes our beliefs, our imagination, and even how we process information. And yes, it can even show up physically, like how stress or harmony in relationships can affect your body. Wild, right? Now, before we do some picking, let's highlight how agreeableness impacts our basic pH. On beliefs, it's shown through an individual's concern with cooperation and social harmony, and tends toward valuing getting along with others and often see themselves as part of a larger social fabric. On affection and social engagement, people with high agreeableness are considered more trusting, altruistic, and generally more pro-social than others, practicing empathy and showing concern for others' welfare. On cognition, agreeableness assesses risk-taking behavior, and physically, brain activity changes during group decisions when 2 heads are better than 1. The broader implications of agreeableness extend beyond individual relationships, influencing organizational dynamics, community engagement, and societal harmony by reducing conflict, fostering inclusivity, and bridging ideological divides. With this consideration, let's dig in. Alright, so let's bring in Stephen Covey and his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, where he highlights habits all can develop. One particular habit Covey highlights, seek first to understand, then to be understood, is like the golden rule of agreeableness. It's about putting yourself in someone else's shoes before you jump to conclusions or try to make your point. This for me highlighted that in order to be agreeable, we must learn to listen. Now, if you're like me or not, you may be thinking, I know how to listen, I use my ears all the time. Or there's a difference between hearing and listening. Ears catch sound, minds catch meaning. Sounds go in, meaning sinks in. You get it? You can hear noise, but you have to listen for meaning. Hearing is easy and automatic. Listening takes effort and intention. So as we develop agreeableness, here are some practical strategies you can use to develop active listening. 1. Active listening by giving your full attention. It's hard to put away distractions like your phone or tablet, that television off in the distance, or your reflection in their glasses, and make eye contact. But if we don't want to appear disconnected, often causing an individual irritation because they need to repeat themselves, we can make the effort to keep ourselves interactive. Pay attention. Show you're engaged. Nod. Use affirming words and use open body language. And reflect back by paraphrasing what the speaker said, which shows you're truly processing the words, such as, "So what I'm hearing is." 2. Hold back on judgment. A good friend of mine asked me to review a document, and as I started responding, they highlighted, "Don't criticize, just read it." I was accustomed to giving my critique first, so I read it that way. It was a listening skill I needed to learn. It was difficult at first, however, I worked to avoid jumping to conclusions or preparing my response while the other person is talking, or if they've asked me to review something, and being open to hearing perspectives that differ from my own. Also, resisting the urge to fix can be difficult for some, but sometimes people just want to be heard, not given advice. So ask, would you like feedback, or do you just want to share? The old quote, "Offer neither salt nor counsel without request," is all about respecting boundaries. Don't give advice or intervene unless someone asks for it. In personal growth, this is a great reminder. Sometimes, the best way to support others and ourselves is to listen and wait for an invitation before jumping in. 3. Ask open-ended questions, especially when you need more information. Deeper conversation tends to follow questions like, "Can you tell me more about that?" or "How did that make you feel?" 4. Take note of nonverbal cues. Now hold on, this is going to be a deep one. The challenge with this is, many people don't know how to read the room or read between the lines and pick up on the nonverbal signals people send. To develop understanding body language and how your own body responds to current activities based on prior experiences, check out The Dictionary of Body Language by Joe Navarro and The Body Keeps the Score by Bezel van der Kolk. I found that the better I understood how my body responds, the more likely I took that into consideration with others. Before we jump into nonverbal cues, let's dig deeper on strategies for developing active listening. 1. We can pause before responding, which is hard. But when you take a moment after someone finishes speaking to process what they've said before replying, then you can engage in deeper connection. 2. We can practice mindfulness through regular meditation or mindfulness exercises to help you stay present in conversations by managing the thoughts that form and keep them in their lane while you're engaged. And 3. We can seek feedback from trusted friends or colleagues on how you can improve your listening. They may feel like they aren't qualified to answer, and hopefully they'll ask themselves if they're a good listener as well. Sometimes, others notice things we don't. Next time you're in a conversation, challenge yourself to listen without interrupting for at least 2 minutes. Afterward, summarize what you heard before adding your thoughts. You may want to inform the person that you'll take this time, so they aren't led to feel uncomfortable with a long pause. Let's become comfortable with taking the time we need to respond, where possible and necessary. When we take the time to really understand someone, we're creating a foundation for collaboration and trust. It's like rowing a boat. Everyone's paddling in sync, you move forward or backward, but you do it together with seemingly effortless ease. But if one person's doing their own thing, you may up going in circles, not making any progress, and experiencing drag. Here's a quick exercise. The next time you're in a disagreement, instead of reacting, pause and ask yourself, what's really going on here? What's their perspective? And why am I confrontational about this? You might be surprised at how much clarity that brings. Remember, in Ho'oponopono, the exercise starts with you before making moves that involve others. Now back to the nonverbal cues. Here are a few ideas to develop understanding nonverbal cues. 1. Observe body language by paying attention to posture, gestures, and facial expressions. Notice if someone's arms are crossed, which might signal defensiveness, or if they're leaning in, which often means interest or engagement. The more we observe and take in social data, the better we understand others. Some may say, you can't know what others are thinking or feeling. However, in the book The Gift of Fear by Gavin de Becker, the author highlights how many of us know what a driver near us may do, such as changing lanes with or without a signal. Or, when we're walking behind people, we can assess in what direction others will go, with what gait and speed, and determine your counter moves. We tend to know or have a fairly good idea of what may happen and make efforts to address that change. 2. Watch for patterns by looking for clusters of cues rather than focusing on a single gesture. For example, someone may smile, but also fidget or avoid eye contact. Mixed signals can reveal deeper feelings. Build on a foundation, not just a single brick. 3. You can tune into tone and pace by listening to how something is said, not just what is said. Changes in pitch, speed, or volume can indicate excitement, nervousness, or discomfort. Also, I think to be adept at this, one needs exposure to other cultures' music and prose, speech patterns, and inflections. What may translate as colloquial and common to one person may appear disrespectful to another. Number 4. Make sure to notice eye contact, which can show confidence, honesty, or interest, while lack of it might suggest discomfort, shyness, or even deception, though context matters. Again, taking into account cultural fluidity can add context to eye contact in various ways. 5. Practice empathy by imagining yourself in the other person's shoes. Ask yourself, what might they be feeling right now? And see if their nonverbal cues match the situation. 6. Ask for feedback if you're unsure. It's okay to gently ask, I noticed you seemed quiet when we talked about that. How are you feeling? And 7. Reflect after conversations by thinking back on the nonverbal cues you noticed and how they matched or didn't match the words spoken. The next time you're in a conversation, focus on one aspect, like facial expressions or hand gestures, and see what you notice. Over time, you'll start picking up on subtle signals more naturally. Now, let's talk about seeking out new experiences. Openness and agreeableness go hand in hand because when you expose yourself to new ideas, cultures, or even just different ways of thinking, you expand your capacity for empathy and understanding. This is where individual and collective success come into play. When we're open to new experiences, we're not just growing as individuals, we're also creating opportunities for better collaboration and stronger relationships. Try something novel this week. Whether it's a new activity, a conversation with someone outside your usual circle, or even just reading about a topic you know nothing about. These small steps can have a huge impact on your perspective. Here's another thing about agreeableness. It's not about being agreeable all the time. It's about being thoughtful, and that means doing your due diligence before you jump to conclusions. The way we interpret situations paints how we see the world, so it's worth taking the time to get it right. This is where introspection comes in. Ask yourself, why do I feel this way? Is this something based on facts or assumptions? And then look outward. Social benchmarking can be a great way to gain perspective when we see how others handle similar situations. Next time you feel triggered or upset, take a moment to journal about it. Write down what happened, how you felt, and what you think it means. Then, revisit it later with a clearer mind. You'll be amazed at how this simple practice can shift your perspective. Alright, let's get into Ho'oponopono. This Hawaiian practice is all about reconciliation and forgiveness, and it's a beautiful way to cultivate humility, modesty, and vulnerability, all key components of agreeableness. It's as simple as saying 4 phrases: I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, and I love you. You can say it to someone else or even just to yourself. It's about letting go of resentment and creating space for understanding and connection. Try this. The next time you're feeling disconnected from someone, take a moment to say these phrases, whether out loud or in your head. It might feel a little awkward at first, but trust me, it's powerful. Now, let's talk about boundaries. Because while agreeableness is a wonderful trait, it's crucial to balance it with self-respect. Being agreeable doesn't mean saying yes to everything. It means knowing when to say yes and when to say no. In The Gift of Fear by Gavin de Becker, the author talks about trusting your intuition to stay safe and maintain boundaries. Some highlights that he gave are: 1. Trust your intuition. Intuition is a reliable early warning system, and if someone feels off, you should pay attention to that, because your instincts are often picking up on subtle cues your conscious mind hasn't processed yet. 2. Pay attention to survival signals, or behaviors or feelings like persistent unease, nagging doubt, or a sense of dread that can alert you to danger before your rational brain catches up. 3. Don't brush off predictable violence. Violence is not as random as it seems. De Becker argues that there are often warning signs. If you learn to recognize them, you can better protect yourself. 4. Embrace the role of fear. Fear itself isn't the enemy. Unwarranted anxiety is. Real fear is a gift that can keep you safe, while worry and anxiety are often distractions. 5. Be aware of manipulation tactics. He outlines commonly used manipulation tactics such as forced teaming, such as like, we're in this together, charm and niceness. This is used strategically and is usually not genuine. Typecasting, or making a slight insult to get you to engage. Loan sharking, or offering unsolicited help to create a sense of debt. And the unsolicited promise. I promise I'll leave you alone. 6. Be skillful at saying no. De Becker emphasizes the importance of being able to say no without feeling guilty or needing to justify yourself. And 7. Self-empowerment. The author boosts self-efficacy, encouraging readers to trust themselves, set boundaries, and not be afraid to offend someone if it means keeping themselves safe. Here's a quick tip. If you're struggling with boundaries, start small. Practice saying no to something minor, like an invitation you don't really want to accept. Over time, it'll get easier to assert your needs in bigger ways. Agreeableness can be weaponized on our gullibility. Gullibility refers to a tendency to be easily persuaded or deceived because of excessive trust or lack of skepticism. Other related terms include naive, or showing a lack of experience or sophistication, and overly trusting. Being too trusting can make someone vulnerable to manipulation or exploitation. It's all about finding a healthy balance between openness and discernment. Gullibility can be influenced by several factors, both psychological and situational. 1. People high in agreeableness, empathy, or openness may be more trusting and thus more susceptible to believing others without skepticism. 2. Individuals who haven't encountered deception or manipulation before might not recognize warning signs. 3. Wanting to avoid conflict or please others can lead someone to overlook red flags. 4. Some people naturally expect the best from others and assume good intentions, making them less guarded. 5. Not questioning information or lacking analytical skills can increase gullibility. 6. In group settings, people may go along with others' ideas or decisions to fit in, even if something feels off. And 7. Hunger, Anger, loneliness, and tiredness, or halt, or a strong need for acceptance, can lower defenses and make someone more vulnerable to persuasion or manipulation. Gullibility isn't always a flaw. It can stem from positive qualities like generosity and openness. But, as with most traits, balance is key. Most of us are taught that being nice, cooperative, and helpful are good things. And they are. But what happens when being agreeable turns into people-pleasing or even self-abandonment? Research shows that people who are highly agreeable are more trusting and empathetic, but this can sometimes make us vulnerable to manipulation. For example, if you grew up in a family where conflict was avoided at all costs, or you were praised for being the easy child, you might find it hard to say no, even when you really want to. This is especially true for people with anxious or insecure attachment styles. Now, right quick, attachment style refers to the way a person relates to others in close relationships, especially in terms of emotional bonds, trust, and intimacy. It's a psychological framework that develops early in life, usually based on our interactions with caregivers, and influences how we connect with romantic partners, friends, and even colleagues throughout adulthood. The four main attachment styles are secure attachment, anxious or preoccupied attachment, avoidant or dismissive attachment, and disorganized or fearful avoidant attachment. Those with a secure attachment tend to be comfortable with intimacy and independence, and trust others and feel safe expressing emotions. Those with an anxious or preoccupied attachment tend to crave closeness and approval, often fearing abandonment, and may become overly dependent or worry about relationships. Those with an avoidant or dismissive attachment tend to value independence and may feel uncomfortable with too much closeness. Also, they tend to suppress emotions and keep distance in relationships. Those with a disorganized or fearful avoidant attachment express mixed feelings about intimacy, wanting closeness but fearing it, and may have difficulty trusting others and managing emotions. Attachment styles aren't set in stone. They can evolve with new experiences and self-awareness. Understanding your own style and those of others can help improve communication, set healthier boundaries, and build stronger, more fulfilling relationships. The fear of rejection or abandonment can drive us to agree just to keep the peace. Over time, this can lead to resentment, burnout, and even a loss of your sense of self. Now, let's talk about manipulation. Manipulators often zero in on people who have trouble setting boundaries. If you're always the first to help or say yes, you might find yourself being taken advantage of at work, in relationships, or even within your community. So, how do we find the balance? How can we stay kind and empathetic without losing ourselves? Some practical steps are: 1. Practice saying no, even in small ways. And 2. Reflect on whether you're agreeing out of genuine desire or fear of conflict. Remember, your needs matter too. Level set. Manipulation is when someone intentionally influences or controls another person's thoughts, feelings, or actions, often for their own benefit and sometimes at the expense of the other person's well-being. And this impacts our agreeableness. Manipulation shows up through 1. Guilt tripping, or making someone feel bad or responsible so they'll do what you want. An example of that is, if you really cared about me, you'd cancel your plans and help me. 2. Gaslighting, which is denying or twisting facts to make someone doubt their own memory or perception. An example of this is, that never happened, you're just imagining things. 3. Love bombing. When you're overwhelmed with affection, praise, or gifts to gain someone's trust and dependence, then withdrawing it to gain control. An example of this is showering a new friend or partner with constant affection and attention, then suddenly becoming distant they don't comply. 4. Giving the silent treatment or withdrawing communication or affection as punishment, hoping the other person will change their behavior to regain approval. 5. Playing the victim by exaggerating or fabricating hardship to gain sympathy, avoid responsibility, or manipulate others into providing help or concessions. 6. Peer pressure, when group influence is used to coerce someone into doing something against their will or values. An example of this is, everyone else is doing it, don't be the odd one out. 7. Triangulation or social ambushing, or bringing a third person into a conflict to manipulate the dynamics, often to create jealousy, rivalry, or confusion. 8. Withholding information or information asymmetry, with deliberately keeping important details secret to maintain power or control in a relationship, such as a customer to business, as well as lateral and vertical personal and professional relationships or group. 9. Flattery and compliments, with using excessive praise to lower someone's guard and make them more susceptible to requests or influence. Consider the difference between flattery and being gassed up. Your close relationships want to see you do well and reap the benefits of your progress. Hopefully, you're also reaping the benefits and everyone is mutually benefited. It's when you're in a lopsided relationship where flattery can be used as a weapon of manipulation. You've heard, don't look a gift horse in the mouth, but when it comes to compliments in unbalanced relationships, prudence is preferred. Consider the value to you as well as the potential injuries. And 10. Threats or ultimatums, or forcing someone's hand by presenting negative consequences if they don't comply. Example, if you don't do this, I'm leaving. Now, I must say, I love hearing stories of someone pushing back against threats and ultimatums. Determining that if someone wanted to FAFO, F-A-F-O, then they'll up the ante, call their bluff, and raise them one to show them that meat is greasy. Ways in which we push back against manipulation are: 1. Normalizing curiosity and skepticism, when we frame questioning as a strength, not a sign of distrust or negativity. I can tell you, as a kid in church, I often raised my hand in the congregation to ask questions that I felt weren't being answered sufficiently. Ask questions. And when folks don't want to provide you with sufficient information, determine your next steps. 2. We can teach critical thinking skills to others in our community by encouraging others to pause and evaluate information before accepting it, like using the 5 whys technique or fact-checking basics. 3. Promote self-reflection by asking, what evidence do I have for this belief, or where did I learn this? Our backgrounds, experiences, and emotions color our assumptions. This introspection allows us to pause our thinking, find the sources, consider the weight of their influence, and decide if we'll continue with business as usual or make course corrections. 4. Create safe spaces for dialogue. I've encountered far too many times when people want to avoid talking about a difficult subject for fear of losing themselves. Unfortunately, many problems don't get the needed attention, and it often gets worse. I had a pastor who would suggest that people let issues die for lack of attention instead of modeling open discussions where differing opinions were respected and addressed. I also acknowledge that social frameworks such as church, school, and military support a follow what I say without question ideology, perpetuating what Plato believed, that not everyone is equally equipped to make their best decisions for themselves or for society, and that, like the church and military, the people should ask what they can do and can't do, instead of self-determining. It can seem daunting to create safe spaces, and when that happens, remember, foundations are laid one part at a time. Changing your mind isn't a weakness, it's growth. 5. Highlight the value of healthy skepticism, which is about questioning and seeking evidence, while still being open to positive outcomes, versus cynicism, which is about expecting deception or negative motives, often shutting out the possibility of good intentions. 6. Practice saying, I don't know. This may sound to some as though you're being difficult, but what's worse, trying to answer a question you don't know, either sounding uninformed or giving misleading information, or saying, I don't know, either because you don't know the information or how the information can be used by the listener. 7. Let's normalize admitting uncertainty and being open to learning, and encourage others to seek out multiple perspectives before forming strong opinions. We all know that person, even if it's ourselves, with strong opinions on issues we know a little about. For example, in a conversation with family, I realized that even if I'd been a minister, read the King James Version Bible multiple times, front to back, taught Sunday school for years, preached Sunday morning services and revivals, when we started talking about religion, I had to step back and realize I didn't know enough to comfortably chime in and provide meaningful information. And so I said, when they asked my opinion, I don't know. When I said, I don't know, my brain said, let's find out. Man, that led me on a journey of self that I look forward to sharing with you. And 8, let's encourage media literacy by teaching basic skills for evaluating sources, spotting misinformation, and understanding bias. In a world where it seems the powers that be want to keep you uninformed, seek the truth and share it with others. The more we know. Next time you hear something that sounds too good to be true, pause and ask yourself, what's the source? What evidence supports this? And how might my own hopes or fears be shaping my reaction? I want to encourage critical thinking while maintaining agreeableness, and see how it's about blending open-mindedness and kindness with thoughtful skepticism. Ways we can do this are: 1. Reframe critical thinking as a pro-social skill. Critical thinking is a way to strengthen relationships and communities, not just as a tool for debate. Asking good questions and seeking understanding shows respect for others' perspectives. 2. Model respectful inquiry by questioning ideas, not people, with empathy. For example, that's an interesting point. Can you tell me more about how you came to that conclusion? Or, I appreciate your view. I wonder if we could look at it from another angle. 3. We can encourage curious agreeableness when we teach that it's possible to be both kind and inquisitive. Agreeableness doesn't mean automatic agreement. It means engaging with others in a positive, open way, even when you're exploring doubts or uncertainties. 4. Use collaborative problem solving by framing critical thinking as a team effort. Like, let's figure this out together. This helps agreeable individuals feel safe questioning ideas without feeling like they're creating conflict. 5. Validate disagreement as growth. When we are reminded that respectful disagreement is a sign of healthy relationships and intellectual honesty. It's okay to say, I see it differently, and here's why. 6. Practice yes and conversations, like borrowing from improv that instead of shutting down ideas, build on them. We can highlight great points as well as others to be considered. 7. Reflect on motives. By noticing when we're agreeing just to avoid conflict versus when we genuinely believe something. Self-awareness is key. Being agreeable doesn't mean you have to say yes to everything. True harmony comes from honest conversations where kindness and curiosity work together. Next time you're tempted to just nod along, try asking one thoughtful question. You might be surprised by what you learn and how much deeper your connections can go. Today, we explored the power of agreeableness, how it shapes our beliefs, emotions, and relationships. We talked about seeking to understand, embracing new experiences, doing our due diligence, practicing ho'oponopono, and setting boundaries. It's a lot, but it all comes down to one thing: rowing together toward harmony and growth. So here's your challenge for the week. Pick one thing we talked about today and put it into action. Maybe it's trying ho'oponopono, setting a boundary, or seeking to understand someone better. Whatever it is, take that step. Well, that's it, everybody. Thank you for joining me for this conversation about agreeableness, one of the 5 major personality traits that make up our CANOE. Next time, we'll dig into neuroticism, what it is, how it shows up, and how to manage your own. We'll talk about applying Ho'oponopono and making personal progress. Thanks for tuning in, my friends. Remember, we're all in this boat together, so let's make it a smooth ride. Take care of yourself and each other until next time, where we'll dig in on brain boogers.